All of you very good morning students. Second year zoology. Continue to the respiration topic. Previous class respiratory system, respiratory tract, the nose, nasal chamber, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles. The bronchioles are primary bronchioles, secondary bronchioles, tertiary bronchioles. So they are the complete the respiratory tract. So today lungs. So today topic is human lungs. Human lungs. The human lungs are the solid and sponge like organs. So the lungs are formed by the spongy like. There is no muscles. So they are formed by the spongy like tissues. So the lungs are the spongy like structure. There is no formation of the muscles. There is no muscles. Only like spongy like. Next one. These are location. Lungs location. So the lungs are location from the. They are located from the. Lungs are located from the thoracic cavity. They are located from the thoracic cavity. Their lungs are present from the thoracic cavity. Thoracic cavity means chest. The location from the chest. Next one, the lungs are conical shape. The lung shape is the conical. The lung shape was the conical shape. First one, the lungs are the solid spongy-like structures. Next one, the lungs location. The lungs are located from the thoracic cavity. The lungs are located from the thoracic cavity. Next one, the lung shape is the conical shape. The lung shape is the conical shape. Next one, the lungs are the covered by the. So they are the lungs. The right lung, they are the left lung. The lungs are covered by the membranes. The lungs are covered by the membranes. That membranes is called the pleural membranes. The lungs are covered by the membranes. That membranes is called the pleural membranes. The membranes are the two, outer one and inner one. Outer membrane and inner membrane. Outer membrane is called the outer parietal. Pleural membrane. Inner one visceral. Pleural membrane. The lungs are covered by the membranes. That membranes is called the protecting membranes. The membranes are the double layers, two layers. One is the outer layer, another one is the inner layer. So the outer layer is called the parietal pleural membrane. Outer parietal pleural membrane. Next one, inner one, visceral pleural membrane. Pleural membranes. Between these two membranes presenting on the cavity. So they are the outer parietal membrane, inner visceral membrane. Outer parietal membrane, inner visceral membrane. Between these two membranes presenting on the space. That space is called the cavity. This is called the pleural cavity. Pleural cavity. That pleural cavity filled with a fluid. That fluid is called the pleural fluid. The pleural cavity is filled with a fluid. That fluid is called the pleural fluid. The lungs are covered by the two membranes. That membranes is called the pleural membranes. Outer parietal pleural membrane, inner visceral pleural membrane. Between the two membranes presenting on the space. That space is called the pleural cavity. That cavity filled with a fluid. That fluid is called the pleural fluid. Next one, that membrane is called the pleural fluid. That membrane is called the pleural fluid. Pleural cavity. The cavity is called the pleural cavity. That fluid with the fluid is called the pleural fluid. This fluid function, they are the protection from the shocks, mechanical shocks, the protection from the mechanical shocks, and also protection from the friction, like free movement of the lung movements. They are the free movements of the lungs, and the protection of the friction, like the mechanical shocks. They are the protection from the lungs. Once revise, the lungs are the solid and spongy like structures. Solid and spongy like structures. There is no muscles. Next one, the location. The lungs located from the thoracic cavity. Either side of the heart. So the middle one presenting on the heart. One side is the right lung, other side is the left lung. The location from the thoracic cavity, either side of the heart. Next one, the shape. The lung shape is a conical shape. The lung shape was conical shape. Next one, the lungs are covered by the membranes. That membranes is called the pleural membranes. That pleural membranes, outer membrane is called outer parietal pleural membrane. Inner parietal pleural membrane, outer parietal pleural membrane, outer parietal pleural membrane and inner parietal pleural membrane. Between these two pleural membranes presenting on the fluid, that fluid is called the pleural fluid. So this pleural fluid functioning is the protection of the lungs. Next one, so they are the diagram of the lungs. So they are the epiglottis. Next one, larynx. Larynx is also called the voice box. Next one, trachea divided into bronchi divided into primary bronchi to secondary bronchi to tertiary bronchi also divided into primary bronchiole, secondary bronchiole, tertiary bronchiole, terminal bronchiole and respiratory bronchiole. Finally respiratory bronchiole presenting on the alveolar ducts, finally presenting on the alveoli sacs. So they are the structure of the lungs. The lung is covered by the pleural membrane. So these are the pleural membrane, outer parietal membrane, inner visceral membrane, outer parietal, inner visceral pleural membranes. Next one, between the two membranes presenting on the fluid, that fluid is called the pleural fluid. Next one, the middle part presenting on the heart. Between these two lungs are presenting on the heart. Next one, the heart is protection from the ribs. So these are the ribs. So downwards is presenting on the diaphragm. So downwards is presenting on the diaphragm. Next one, the lungs contain alveoli. The lungs contain alveoli. So alveoli are the structural and functional. Units of lungs. Alveoli are the structural and functional units of the lungs. Alveoli. The alveolus are the structural and functional units of the lungs. Approximately, the lungs contain 300 million alveoli present in both lungs. How many number? 300 million alveoli presenting in both lungs. So the lungs contain alveoli. The alveoli are the structural and functional unit of the lungs. Next one, the alveoli are the 300 millions of alveoli presenting in the lungs. Approximately 300 millions of lungs alveoli presenting on the lungs. Next one, so these are the diagram of the alveoli. Next one, so the lungs divided into left lung and right lung. So the right lung is divided into three lobes. One is upper lobe, middle lobe, lower lobe. The right lung is divided into three lobes: upper lobe, middle lobe and lower lobe. Upper, middle, lower lobes. Next one, the left lung is divided into two lobes. One is the upper lobe, another one is the lower lobe. The right lung is divided into three lobes: upper lobe, middle lobe, lower lobe. The left lung divided into two lobes: upper lobe and lower lobe. So they are the lung. They are the lung divisions. The lung divided into lobes. The lungs are divided into lobes: upper lobe, middle lobe, lower lobe. Next one, the left lung is divided into upper lobe and lower lobe. So these are the division of the lobes in lungs. Next one, the lungs contain a alveoli. So the alveoli are the structural and functional units of the lungs. Next one, the lungs are approximately 300 millions of alveoli present in both lungs. Approximately 300 million alveoli presenting in the both lungs. Next one, the alveoli contain two layers. Alveoli contain two layers: outer yellow elastic connective tissue, outer yellow elastic, outer yellow fibrous. So the alveoli contain two layers. Outer alveoli wall contain two layers. First one, outer contain yellow fibrous connective tissue. The outer membrane is the yellow fibrous connective tissue. So the inner one. So inner one is they are the simple squamous epithelium. Simple squamous epithelium. So the alveoli wall contain two membranes. Alveoli wall contain two membranes: outer yellow fibrous connective tissue, inner simple squamous epithelium. Inner simple squamous epithelium. The inner simple squamous epithelium contain cells. The inner simple squamous epithelium contain cells. That cells is called the pneumocytes. They are the pneumocytes. The simple squamous epithelium contain cells. That cells is called the pneumocytes. Pneumocytes. The pneumocytes are the two types. The pneumocytes are the two types. Pneumocyte type 1. Type 1. Pneumocyte type 2. Pneumocyte type 1 cells and pneumocyte type 2 cells. The type 1 cells is the many in number. Many in number. So they are the lower number. Few in number. They are the few in number. Few in number. So the type 1 pneumocytes, these functioning is the helps from the gases exchange. Helps from the gases exchange. They are helps from the gases exchange. So these few number of the pneumocyte 2 cells. So these functioning is the secretion from the lecithin. Lecithin. So they are releasing from the lecithin. So they are releasing from the lecithin. So the lecithin functioning as the prevention of collapsing of alveoli. Prevention of collapsing of alveoli. Prevention of the collapsing of alveoli. So they are the protection of the alveoli. So they are the squamous epithelium. The inner simple squamous epithelium, they presenting on the cells. That cells is called the pneumocytes. The pneumocytes are the larger are the pneumocyte type 1 cells. So they are the helps from the gases exchanges. So next one, few number is the pneumocyte type 2 cells. So they are releasing from the secretion. They are called the lecithin. The lecithin functioning is the protection of the prevention of the collapsing of the alveoli. So these are the wall of the squamous wall of the alveoli. Next one, the alveoli walls contain a pores. The alveoli also contain a pores. That force is called the force of Hun. The alveoli walls contain a force. That force is called the force of Hun. The alveoli walls contain a force. That force is called the force of Hun. Force of Hun. So they are helps from the gases exchange. These also helps from the gases exchange. So these are the alveoli. So these are the lungs. The lungs contain a 3 millions of the alveoli. Next one, diaphragm. Another one, diaphragm. So they are the structure of the lungs. Once revised, the lungs contain a alveoli. The alveoli are the 300, approximately 300 millions of the alveoli in both lungs. Next one, the alveoli contain a membranes, 2 membranes, outer yellow fibrous connective tissue, inner squamous epithelium, simple squamous epithelium. The simple squamous epithelium contain a cells. That cells is called the pneumocyte cells. Pneumocyte cells. That pneumocyte cells are the 2 types, type 1 cells and type 2 cells. Type 1 is the many cells, type 2 is the few cells. Type 1 cells, they help from the gases exchange. Type 2 cells, the production of the secretion. They are the lecithin. They are functioning as the prevention of collapsing of the alveoli. Next one, the wall of the alveoli contain a pores, small pores. The pores is called the force of Hun. Force of Hun. So they are helps from the gases exchange. So they are the structure of the lungs. Next one, diaphragm. Next one, a diaphragm. Next one, diaphragm. Next one, diaphragm. So the diaphragm is presenting on the below the lungs. Diaphragm presenting on the below the lungs. So these are the diaphragm. So these are the diaphragm. The diaphragm normal shape is a dome shape. The diaphragm normal shape. Dome shape. Dome shape means these like. So these are the dome shape. The diaphragm is the dome shape. They are presenting on the below the lungs. Presenting on the below the lungs. This diaphragm body divided into 2 regions. The body divided into 2 regions. The above the diaphragm is the thoracic cavity. Above the diaphragm is the thoracic cavity. Below the diaphragm is the abdominal cavity. So this one is the diaphragm. So above the diaphragm, thoracic cavity. Below the diaphragm, abdominal cavity. Thoracic cavity, abdominal cavity. The body divided into thoracic cavity and abdominal cavity. Division of the diaphragm. The diaphragm, above the diaphragm is called the thoracic cavity. Below the diaphragm is called the abdominal cavity. Abdominal cavity. Next one, this diaphragm helps from the respiration. This diaphragm helps from respiration. Helps from the respiration. The diaphragm contain a muscles. That muscles is called the radial muscles. The diaphragm contain a muscles. That muscles is called the radial muscles. The diaphragm contain a muscles. That muscles is called the radial muscles. These radial muscles contraction. The diaphragm is converted to the straight like. The contraction of the muscles. The diaphragm is converted to the straight one. So they are the diaphragm. Next one, thoracic cage. Next one, thoracic cage. Thoracic cage. The thoracic cavity is covered by the thoracic cage. The thoracic cavity is covered by the thoracic cage. Upper side, the presenting on the upper side, presenting on the clavicle bones and neck. So they are the clavicle bones and neck, upper side presenting on the clavicle bones and neck, lower side. Lower side presenting on the diaphragm. Lower side presenting on the diaphragm. Next one, ventral side. Ventral side presenting on the sternum. Sternum and ribs. Sternum and ribs. Next one, dorsal side. The dorsal side presenting on the vertebral column. And ribs. Next one, lateral side presenting on the ribs. Lateral side presenting on the ribs. Lateral side presenting on the ribs. So these total is presenting on the thoracic cage. So the thoracic cavity is covered by the thoracic cage. Ventral side, dorsal side, upper side, lower side, and lateral side. So the ventral side presenting on the sternal bone. So these are the sternal bone and ribs. And dorsal side presenting on the vertebral column and ribs. Vertebral column and ribs. Upper side presenting on the clavicle bones and neck. Clavicle bones and neck. The lower side presenting on the diaphragm. Lower side presenting on the diaphragm. Next one, lateral side presenting on the ribs. Lateral side also presenting on the ribs. So these are the thoracic cage. Next one, costal muscles. Costal muscles. Internal costal muscles. Intercostal muscles. Intercostal muscles. Intercostal muscles. So the intercostal muscles. So external, internal costal muscles. First one, these costal muscles. The between these two ribs, between two ribs, the space is called costal region. Between the two ribs, the space is called the coastal region. That coastal region presenting on the muscles is called the coastal muscles. Internal coastal muscles. The internal coastal muscles are the two types. One is the external intercostal muscles. External intercostal muscles. Second one, internal intercostal muscles. Between these two ribs presenting on the muscles, that muscles are called the coastal muscles. The coastal muscles are the two types. External intercostal muscles and internal intercostal muscles. External intercostal muscles, internal intercostal muscles. So the external intercostal muscles, these function, these contraction, so they are helps from respiration, helps from normal respiration. So the external intercostal muscles, these muscles are the contraction. External intercostal muscles are the contraction. So they are helps from the respiration, the contraction, and they help from the respiration. Respiration only inspiration and expiration. Normal contraction, relaxation. External intercostal muscles, normal contraction, relaxation. These are helps from the respiration. Next one, internal intercostal muscles. These contraction, these helps from the contraction. They are the forced respiration. So the external intercostal muscles and internal intercostal muscles. Normal external intercostal muscles contraction and relaxation help from the normal respiration. Sometimes the forced respiration, that time helps from the internal intercostal muscles. These internal intercostal muscles contraction, they are help from the forced respiration or forced expiration. So they are the costal muscles between the two muscles presenting on between the two ribs presenting on the muscles. That muscles is called the costal muscles. The costal muscles are the two types: external intercostal muscles, second one internal intercostal muscles. External intercostal muscles, these helps from the normal expiration and inspiration, normal respiration. So the internal intercostal muscles, these are helps from the forced respiration. So these are the diaphragm, thoracic cage and costal muscles.